Hey friends, today what we're going to talk about is composition. Why is composition important? Composition is important because however you frame the image, composition is your visual guideline to knowing what to look at. And the better you could compose your pictures, the more you could engage your viewers. The most dynamic compositions are the ones that have lots of diagonals, that have curves, have different shapes, forms like squares, triangles, circles. A great composition is the difference between making a photo that bores your viewer and a composition that wows your viewer. Generally, in terms of composition, what you want to think about is how can you create some sort of different arrangements of the forms in the frame. So where you're going to put your subject, how you're going to frame the background, and how can you make the image more interesting to look at. Generally with composition, what I try to do is I try to make the photos simple yet dynamic. What makes a simple yet dynamic image? A simple image is a photo that has a simple background. And to make it dynamic is what you could do is you could tilt the frame, you could add dynamic symmetry. What you could do is you could add leading lines, you could add frames within the frame. Generally with composition, however you decide to compose your frame, try not to crop. The more you crop your photos, the less interesting your photos are going to be. So generally when you're framing, I recommend you to look at the edges of the frame. The more you look at the edges of the frame, the better you could compose whatever's inside the frame. With composition, try to keep it simple. One of the best ways to study composition is look at the works of the master photographers. My personal favorite photographers include Henri Cartier-Bresson, Joseph Koudelka, and for simple portraits, I love to look at the work of Richard Avedon. With composition, also a lot of it is analyzing your photos after the fact, which means try to frame it as best as you can and shoot lots of photos of the scene, but at the very end, try to keep the backgrounds simple, clean, and choose your photos based on your gut. Generally with composition, I like to choose photos that punch me in the gut. So photos that excite me, the photos that I like. Ultimately with composition, the more you study great composition, the more you can internalize it and treat it better yourself. So these are some basic tips on composition.